never want to sound like a sales guy. You never want to sound try hard. Loosely speaking, you want to find out what is their pain point, the why behind it, and then the why behind the why. So we also call this following the trail of whys. You want the discovery phase to be a conversation. Put your idea into the prospect's mind, but you have them get the idea that you want them to have. You do not pitch the program. You pitch the steps. Pause. Zip your mouth shut. That famous Wolf of Wall Street quote, like, whoever talks first loses. If you're a digital consultant, coach, or service provider, and you're looking to sell what you have to offer for $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 plus, and you don't know exactly how to sell that, you don't want to sound sleazy, you want to do it in a natural way, and of course, you want to do it in a way where you can close 30, 40, 50% of the people that you're talking to, this episode is for you. This is my so-called Sales Masterclass, and the reason why I wanted to give this to you for free is because I wanted to over-deliver on content like crazy. The content that you learned today is actually something that we used to sell for $1,500 to our existing clients, and to non-existing clients, we would sell this for way more than $3,000. But you will get it for free here today. Sure, you get it in a little bit more of a compressed format because we used to teach this over a whole Saturday, over like 10 hours with a lot of exercises in between and all that jazz. But I want to give you the rundown of the knowledge that we've been using very successfully to make over 8 figures with our consulting company. This is also the thing that we're teaching to our very own paid clients, and we want to give you this here for free. So if you want to learn more about sales and you don't want to be sleazy or weird or awkward, and you have no idea, you don't want to invest into some crazy closing program that is very intensive, you just want to have the information that can get you to close right after this, like literally right after this, you can talk to people, this is for you. So without any further ado, what I want to talk about here is the mindset that you need to have when you want to sell high-ticket offers, specifically in 2024, in nowadays society. This is not some 2016 stuff or anything that is outdated. This is stuff that works nowadays. On top of that, we will be talking about the preparation, what to do before the call, and then the sales call structure, intro and small talk, discovery phase, heaven and hell, hero story, early price drop, steps that you need to pitch, how to handle objections, how to financially advise, how to be persistent without being pushy, and all that jazz. So we're going to go very, very deep into the matter of this whole spiel, so get excited for that. One thing right off the bat, and before we crack into the mindset, I want to give you a little bit of a tough talk, and then I'll lift you up a little bit more with, the good news. So I want to give you the bad news first. The bad news is you're not going to be the first person that charges high-ticket prices in whatever niche you're in, all right? This is not 2016 anymore, where nobody is used to being pitched high prices. Like, look, nowadays, every single person that you're talking to has probably been reached out to 10 times a day, and they've probably been on multiple calls already before, and it's not unusual to them to be pitched high ticket prices. Here's the good news. Because of that, a lot of people won't be too freaked out when you're charging $2,000 or $3,000 for, book writing coaching or fitness coaching or B2B consulting or anything like that. So a lot of people are used to high prices. That's the good news. The bad news is there's a lot of people, or there has been a lot of people before you that have done shit sales on the very person that you're about to talk to. They've been not charismatic. They have not been empathetic. They've been pushy and awkward, and that's why everybody that you're talking to has been quote-unquote pre-burned. Now, you don't need to be charismatic, because I'm going to teach you a lot of things that make you sound very charismatic that will help you quite a lot. This is coming from someone that is a very much a big introvert himself. I have not been good with people by nature. I learned it, and you'll learn a lot of these things today. It's super simple stuff. And you've probably noticed it yourself. You've probably been pitched something for high ticket prices before. So when I say people have been pre-burned, I include you. You've probably been pre-burned as well. And full transparency here as well. What we teach here is exactly what we're doing as well in our sales calls. And we're actually known to be very, very transparent. So I'd rather be honest and transparent and undersell the program than overselling it, and then someone comes in and then is disappointed. So on one hand, we sell very hard, but we're also very, very humble, and we're very, very honest. And then on the other hand, That's kind of like our secret. We're also really, really damn good at delivering. So I'm totally fine with being persistent. You'll learn more about persistence later because we know we can back it up on the back end, right? Everything we do is one-on-one. We have guarantees in place. We have literally everything in place that helps someone succeed. All they have to do when they come to us is just execute. Like, as long as you stick to the program, I know from the bottom of my heart with 100% certainty that you're going to get great results. But of course, if you don't execute, you don't show up anymore, then something else. So that also helps you in regards to the mindset, all right? So that was the bad news. The market's more difficult than it was before, but if you do the things I'm telling you here, you'll be fine. Plus, if you absolutely go above and beyond creating a program and being there for your clients, you'll also be fine. So that is that. In regards to the mindset in the call specifically, I always try to come from a mindset of like, I'm truly trying to help that person. And you've heard this before, right? Try to help instead of selling. But the one story that I've heard that really made that kind of did the trick, that really made me internalize this point, I think it's in the book, the Obstacle is the Way. I think it's The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Great book about stoicism. You don't have to read it in order to understand that. And it's a story about George Clooney. George Clooney, famous actor, famous Hollywood actor. I'm sure you know him. So he was struggling so hard in the beginning of his Hollywood career to get roles because he was coming from the mindset of like he has to sell himself, right? Just like you probably come from the mindset of like you have to sell yourself. You have to sell your offer. And then he realized he did something very, very cool, and he did something very empathetic. He reframed in his own mind going to auditions, right, where he would audit, right, he would audition for a role. Instead of him being, oh, I hope they pick me, he would reframe it in his mind to, well, I hope the people who are making this movie find the right person. So he would start auditioning by simply showing up and figuring out what kind of character are they looking for, what kind of actor are they looking for to cover that role, and then he would try to embody that role as the best of his abilities. And that really helped him get into this mindset of like, oh, it's not about me, I want to have the money, I want to have the clothes, I want to have the new client, to like, let me figure out what they need and give them that very thing and be the best possible solution to the pain points of the person that I have on the call, right? And again, this is nothing super duper new, but maybe this little story of George Clooney helped you internalize that as well as it did for me. So that's very, very important for the mindset. And the other mindset that I often have when I come into a call, this is also what I teach my team, is like, you can only win as long as you act to the best of your abilities. And the reason why this is so powerful is because if you really truly think about it long term, you can only win because you either close the person and you got a new client, in which case you probably didn't learn so much because there's no pain involved in it, or you don't close that person and you're angry with yourself and you're mad and you may be frustrated, in which case you're developing, you'll feel a lot of pain on you that will then, make sure that you're that you never do this mistake again. So you really want to look at this as a long-term kind of thing. You don't want to look at it as a case-by-case basis. Oh, I close, great. I don't close, not great. You more want to see this as like, okay, the more closing calls I show up to and the more I'm persistent and the more I, try new angles and stick to the script and all that jazz, the better I become at this craft, and the more money I make on average, right? And that's kind of like the great thing. So we also tell our sales reps like, hey, because we basically say like the amount of live calls divided by the money that you're making, multiplied by the closing rate that you have. I'm not sure if that's the correct math, but you get what I'm saying. And then you can come up with, okay, on average you're making like whatever $500 per call that you're taking. That's just a random number. I don't know what our real numbers are there. But that really helps with the mindset in regards to like, oh, I have to close that person or not. It's like, yo, the moment I have someone on a call, I'm already basically making $500 on average. So that really helps with mindset. And then last but not least, I'll give you another quick metaphor. This is probably nothing new to you either. And that is this whole idea of like, imagine you're walking down town square and you're surrounded by people that are on fire. Like they're literally burning and it's hot and they're like, oh no, I'm burning, please help me. And you're the one with a bucket of water or a garden hose full of water. So that is you on a closing call. So you have the bucket of water and the other person is burning. And that oftentimes helped me in the beginning when I was too resistant in regards to like, oh, I don't want to do the call. I'm comfy, I'm in my bed, in my underwear, and I have to get up and I have to present myself and I have to close and I have to be, charismatic and all that jazz. The thing that really helped me get to it, I'm like, hey, this other person is burning, right? And I have a garden hose and I can extinguish that fire for them. So that is enough in regards to mindset. Hey, if you've learned something so far, give a thumbs up to this episode or a 5-star rating or whatever. It's on iTunes and Spotify and whatnot. I'm sure there's a rating thingy. That's the only thing I'm asking for. The other thing is in regards to preparation. This is kind of something that I see a lot of reps do wrong. When I do quality control of my own team or of my clients' live calls, sales calls that they're doing, a lot of times I'm like, yo, you sound tired. You sound sad. What's going on? I don't want to buy from you because you sound freaking sad. And then oftentimes they say, oh, it was the first call at 9 a.m. in the morning, or I was already tired. And I always say, look, these things are so easy to avoid if you just have proper preparation, if you have proper warm-up. I mean, if you want to play soccer or football or go to the gym, you're also going to warm your body up. Otherwise, it's too much of a shock and you can get injured. And it's very much the same in closing calls as well. So what I usually do is there's this great exercise I got from my buddy Elliot Hulse. I'm not going to show it. I'm going to explain it because some of you might not listen to this with the video portion on YouTube. So the way this works is you stand up, shoulder width with your legs, and what you do is you try to stretch your arms to the sides and up in the air above your shoulders as much as you can. You really try to stretch these out. What you're doing at the same time is you want to stretch your fingers out as well. So you basically want to stretch all your limbs as much and as far away from you as possible. You also kind of want to stretch your legs as you're standing, and what you want to do is you want to lean back and open your mouth and your eyes as much as you can. You want to open your entire face, your entire facial muscles as much as you can, and you kind of want to look up into the sky. So the whole idea here is that you're opening all your limbs, your face, your mouth. You're opening up everything, and then you just breathe very deeply. It will sound something like this. And you're really trying to push the voice out as much as possible. You're trying to push the air out. Someone's gonna cut that one part out, like Max going crazy. So if it sounds like this, it's like what this does is it opens up all your muscles, and it will feel really, really strange. You maybe will even feel a little bit of a jittering, of a shaking in your lower diaphragm, in your lower belly button. That's really, really good, because all that does is it opens up all your muscles. It loosens your facial muscles, plus on top of that, it loosens up your vocal cords. You will listen to yourself, and you will sound much more sonoric. You will it will sound very, very weird because you've loosened up your larynx and your vocal cords and everything like that. So that really helps. On top of that, I mean, that's now like the weird thing. Now with the weird thing out of the way, you can also just, hey, listen to your favorite song, dance around, do 20 push-ups, take a cold plunge, take a quick cold shower, like whatever floats your boat. This is kind of like an exercise I do. I do this exercise sometimes when I shoot videos, or podcast episodes for that matter. So this is really, really helpful. But what I'm basically trying to say is prepare yourself, because you don't want to have the excuse of like, well, I didn't make $3,000 because it was my first call of the day. That's a lame excuse. Anyways, we got the mindset, we got the market, we got the we got the preparation. Let's talk about the sales call structure. So, you sitting down, you have a prospect on a sales on a Zoom call, and you want to sell to that person. The first thing that I usually do is I have a quick introduction and I have a small talk. So I'm basically just saying, hey, nice to meet you. I can hear you. I can see you. All good? Yeah, fantastic. Good to meet you. My name is Max Tornow. I'm CEO here at Max Tornow. This is my name. I know this is kind of funny. What brings you here? Well, I see your name is John Doe. What brings you here? Oh, cool. What's that background you're at? Oh, wow, I read that book too. It's like, oh, it looks that you're in nice weather. It's snowing where I'm at right now. Just have like literally 30 seconds of small talk. It's funny because these tiny small talk bits turn you into a human being and not into a salesperson, because the other person knows they're in a freaking sales call with you. So they're going to have defenses up. If you joke around and you have a little bit of a funny joke, and you're talking about yourself in a slightly comedic, degrading way, it will really help. So do the small talk, and what I usually try to do is I usually try to down talk myself a little bit. I talk about something weird or something slightly embarrassing that allegedly happened to me before on that day. Something like, hey, listen, real quick before we get started, John, You will not believe what happened to me. So I was making my omelet. I usually eat five eggs in the morning, and I tried to do the pan spinny thingy, like where you're trying to flip it, and it just literally fell on my socks, and I burned my toe because the egg white was really hot, and now I'm sitting here like an idiot with a Band-Aid on my big toe. I'm glad you don't see it. So what you're doing here is you're making yourself really human. So if you have any sort of funny and slightly embarrassing story, tell it. Maybe don't say, hey, this happened to me 5 years ago, but be like, hey, this happened to me recently. At least that way you're not lying, and it really helps you look a little bit more human. So that's a little bit of a mini trick I recommend you to do. The other potential funny thing I actually got from Alex Hormozi, shout out. He used to do this really funny thing where he would sell his gym product in person at his gym, and then the new person will come in, and Alex said like, hey, are you ready for a gym tour? And the person's like, oh yeah, okay, this is my gym. Tour over. Anyways, what brings you here? So this is kind of, again, like a funny little joke that you can do. So if it's over Zoom, you can be like, hey, I'm sitting here at my office. Are you ready for a quick office tour? Okay, great. This is my office. Shortest tour in the world. Again here, if this is not your exact kind of humor, find your own kind of joke. But the basic issue, the basic thing here behind the intro and the small talk is that you introduce yourself on what you're doing, what your position in the company is, or whether that's your own company, and that you have a slightly self-degrading story that is humorous or another sort of dorky joke. It should be like actually a dorky joke that makes the other person be like, okay, you're kind of a dork. You're kind of like a little bit of a sympathetic weirdo, like a nice weirdo. That's kind of what you want to come across as, because that will help the other person feel a little bit more comfortable and, lower their guard a little bit. What I then do is the so-called lay it on me, why are you here today kind of question. And what I really like about that is it puts the other person in a little bit of a qualifying position where they're like, oh, well, why am I here? Plus, they will usually talk about their biggest problem in the beginning already, so it will help you out. Even if you have an application form where you say, I already have that info about them, don't worry, still say that, because you want them to be in the mind frame of like, this is me talking about my problem. You want them to be in a mind frame where they're talking about the most pressing issue that is on their mind, on their shoulders right away. We don't even do much more before that. So it's, again, like just quick intro, small talk, quick joke, and then lay it on me, why are you here today? And then from there, I would already kind of make a little bit of notes, either mentally in my head, or I would write them down in regards to their away language and their towards language. Away and towards language is something I learned from one of my sales mentors, Alan, great guy. Away language is basically anything that they're trying to avoid. Towards language is anything that they want to achieve. So, for example, you say, all right, John, lay it on me. Why are you here today? And he would say something like, well, listen, over the past years, I've gained so much weight, and I feel like I feel sluggish, and my wife doesn't find me attractive anymore. So I would write literally things down like away language, sluggish, unattractive. And then he would say something like, listen, I want to be able to play games with my son, because I want to be a good role model for him. So I would write down towards language, role model. And this works in every niche, of course. So be a little bit mindful of what they're trying to get away from and what they're trying to get towards. This is, again, nothing too crazy, too new. And this is what I would just kind of write down right off the bat. And then I would get into the so-called discovery phase right away. So the lay it on me, why are you here today, is kind of like an overview, almost like a headline of a newspaper article about the client's pain points. And then the discovery phase is like the article. It's like the body of the article. And here's where you want to go really, really deep into. Now, the thing that I see a lot of people doing wrong at the discovery phase is they just have a couple of questions prepared that they learned in some freaking course. And then it's almost like an interview, like, what is your biggest pain? What is bothering you about this? What could you change if I would snip my fingers today? And they just go through, like, systematically through these questions. That does two things. Number one, it kind of defeats the purpose of actually really finding out more about their issue and being empathetic and putting yourself into their shoes, right? The George Clooney frame of like, hey, these are the people, what do they want in that role that I'm trying to cover? And at the same time, I would almost argue it increases the protective shield again of the prospect, because again, they've probably been in a sales call before, and 90% of people, of coaches out there, or sales reps suck at what they do. So it will give them this kind of like Vietnam flashback of like, here come the questions again. So you want the discovery phase to be a conversation. Write this down. It's almost like you're Joe Rogan and you got someone on a podcast. It's not an interview. It's a freaking conversation. The questions that you maybe have to write yourself down, just so you don't lose track, you should use those as like as a guideline, but not as like a checkbox checking it off kind of thing. So it should be a conversation, and you should kind of have the questions that you want to cover in the back of your mind or on a piece of paper, just to make sure that you're covering them, but not like I have to checkbox them off one by one. And what I usually like to do in the discovery phase is I like to listen very, very empathetically over what exactly they're saying, because you will literally find out everything you need to know in regards to what you should pitch them in this very discovery phase. This is not a discovery phase that you want to get it over with so you can get to the pitch and then handle the objections. No. 90% of sales is already being done in the discovery phase. You will use all the information that you're getting in the discovery phase later on in your pitch. What do I mean? Let me give you an example. For example, the person said, we get this a lot. So someone comes into our call and they say, I'm here because I want to make money online, and I've been trying it for quite a long time, but it never really worked. And that's already a super crucial piece of information. So we would then usually ask, okay, well, why didn't it work? And then oftentimes they say things like, well, I bought a program in the past and it didn't work, and it was, really frustrating. Now, 90% of reps would just be like, sorry to hear that. Well, anyways, and then they will continue. What we do is we want to find out, why did this previous program not deliver the results? We want to find that out. And then they will literally say things like, nobody cared, they just oversold me, they made promises, they didn't stick to the guarantee, or they didn't have a guarantee. It was just group coaching where, I was in with 50 or 500 other people, and there wasn't one-on-one and all that jazz. Now, that gives me the information already. For example, if I'm a sales rep in my company, I know that we do everything one-on-one. So guess what I'm going to emphasize later on in the pitch? Hey, this is our one-on-one program. You'll have all the one-on-one in there. This is not us making stuff up. This is just that's actually what we offer. But I'm going to emphasize that part because the person in the discovery phase has told me that the previous program that didn't make it work didn't have a one-on-one aspect. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to emphasize that part of it, right? So gather all the information that you can here in the discovery phase. Loosely speaking, you want to find out what is their pain point, the why behind it, and then the why behind the why. So we also call this following the trail of whys. If you feel like your discovery phase doesn't make people very emotional, it's usually because you're not asking about the why and then the why behind the why. So for example, someone says, hey, I want to improve my dating life. And you're like, okay, well, that makes sense. Next question, right? Don't do that. Instead, okay, I hear you want to improve your dating life. Why is that? And now they maybe say, well, because I want to meet a lot of beautiful women out there. Okay. And instead of saying next question, say love the fact that you want to meet a lot of beautiful women out there. Who doesn't, right? Why is that? And then maybe he says, well, because it's important for a guy like me to have a pretty girlfriend. That's super on point. I totally agree. I mean, everybody wants to have a pretty girlfriend. Why is that? And now they're maybe saying I just don't feel valuable if I don't have an attractive girlfriend. Okay, damn, you don't feel valuable when you don't have an attractive girlfriend. How come? If you don't mind me asking. That's basically another why question. I just phrased it differently, not to say why all the time. And then maybe he would say listen, as a kid, I would always get bullied in school, and I kind of want to show everyone that I'm a valuable human, that my life has value. So now you're really deep. Now you really, really understand what your prospect actually feels deep down inside. So again, the discovery phase is not just something to check box off. It's something where you dive really deep onto what kind of stuff they have tried before, so you can distance yourself from that with your offer later on in the pitch. And you really want to find out what drives them truly behind that, right? We have more about this later in a second, about the heaven and hell story. We'll get to this in a second. But one important aspect when it comes to the discovery phase I really want to emphasize here is acknowledgement and rapport. This kind of feeds into what I said earlier, this whole idea of just next question. That makes you instantly, that makes you being put into a category, into a drawer of sales guy. And that's bad, because people don't want to talk to a sales guy. They want to talk to someone that they feel really connected to, right? So when you acknowledge, when they're talking about their problems, you want to acknowledge that, just like you kind of heard me saying in this example. Instead of just being okay, you got to repeat what they're saying. So The base level acknowledgement is repeating what they're saying. Like, it sounds so stupid. How do I acknowledge it? Just repeat what they're saying in your own words. So I'll give you another example. All right, I'll use the two cameras. Is the other camera here rolling as well? Okay, good. So if you're just listening to this, I'll use slightly different voices just so it's clear for you who's who. All right. So I'm the coach here, and I am the prospect. So the coach says, all right, listen, so why is it important for you to lose weight? Well, my dad died when he was 50, and he died because he was overweight. All right, cool. So why is that important to you? Like, that's not acknowledging. Acknowledging would be something like, damn, man, I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, it must suck to, kind of like lose your dad this early, and especially like seeing that you're in a similar situation now and you want to lose weight. So I totally get you. What I'd be curious about is like, how much do you want to lose? Well, I kind of want to lose probably 10 pounds for a starter. 10 pounds for a starter, that's a pretty good goal. I think that's reasonable. That's achievable. Now, how would your life be different, if you don't mind me asking, if you lost 10 pounds, let's say, in the next 2 months? Well, I would say I would definitely feel more energetic, and maybe I would fit into my favorite pants again. That'd be kind of great. Yeah, your favorite pants. I love that you say that. I mean, who doesn't want to fit into their favorite pants? Like, I don't know about you. I hate the feeling of, tight, like these tight jeans. Like I'm a guy who always just wears shorts whenever possible. Anyways, okay. So you want to lose 10 pounds. You'd feel more energetic. Got it. Another thing that I would love to ask you is this, and then you just go on with the next question. So you can see acknowledging and rapport. So you repeat what they're saying, and you revert it back to you. Like, oh, you want to fit into your favorite pants? Well, I'm kind of a shorts guy for exactly the same reason. Now, when you overdo that, meaning you're doing this at every single point, you kind of sound salesy again because it becomes too systematic. So what I always recommend my clients that are selling their coaching or service providing offers is always like acknowledge like 80% of what the prospect says and add your own twist to it, or reverting it back to you once or twice in the entire call. It really doesn't take much more than that. Like literally just like once or twice. Oh, your girlfriend also likes to paint? That's hilarious. My girlfriend paints all the time. I love her paintings. She's like super insecure about it. She never wants me to see them, but I always try to get a look at them, and they're just amazing. Anyways, what I wanted to ask you is so this one thing that I reverted it back to me is already enough. Do that once or twice in the entire call, and you'll be good. Whew. All right. That was the discovery phase. So we've covered a lot of things so far. I hope you're learning something. I don't have an audience here. This is kind of like being recorded, but I hope you're learning something. I hope you find this valuable. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment, drop a thumbs up or something like that. It will help me reach more people. Let's talk about Heaven and Hell. And this is not Ronnie James Dio, very famous classic metal band that I'm talking about here. Rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio. What I'm talking about here is like a concept. It's also nothing new when it comes to the sales. And that is kind of like you want to find out what is your client's heaven. So you go through the discovery phase, and then you want to have a separate question where you say, okay, listen, Maria, let's assume we fix all these problems. Let's assume you got this, you got this, you got this. That's where you're repeating. How does it feel to you? What's your dream scenario when it comes to fitness, when it comes to getting in shape, when it comes to being in a perfect relationship? What's your ideal perfect 10 out of 10 scenario? I don't care if it's a month from now or 10 years from now. That is the prospect's heaven. And you really, really want to find that out. Also there, you can dive deeper with the why and following the trails of why. Okay, so you said, whatever. You want to live on an island with your family. Why an island? Why not in the mountains? Because you like the sun. Okay, how come you like the sun more? I love the mountains. You love the warm feeling that it gives you when you wake up in the morning and you feel the sun rays on your nose and it tingles you, and the birds are chirping. Got it. That's beautiful. Well, hell, that's respect for that. You really got it figured out in your mind's eye already. That's wonderful. That is heaven. And what I usually do then is I change my tonality a little bit. If I've been leaning forward, I'm leaning back a little bit, or if I'm leaning back, I'm leaning forward a little bit. I say things like, do you mind me if I ask you a bit of a personal question here, John? Have you ever thought of how your life would look like if you never figure out how to fix that problem? And that is such a powerful question because it's like it's like a wake up. We're not in your heaven. This is real life. Where could you land? It almost puts a little bit of of pressure. I wouldn't say pressure, almost like a little bit of, I don't know what the word is now. Urgency, that's the word. It puts a little bit of urgency into the prospect's mind of like, oh, well, if I don't figure it out, then I'm fucked. Excuse my language. So you really want them to kind of be aware of that before you head into the next part. A lot of salespeople, they're all like, happy go round and everybody's happy, we're all dancing kumbaya, and it's all about like getting the prospect into the heaven mode. No, you also want them to be aware of like, listen, there's a really shitty situation coming up if you don't fix that. You want them to feel that urgency. That's what's kind of important in my opinion. And once they talk about the hell, you can also dive deeper there and be like, oh, that's a shitty scenario, or that's pretty tough, or like how would that affect your personal life? How would that affect your professional life? And so on and so forth. So feel free to put the finger in the wound a little bit and dig deeper there. Now, after you've done the heaven and hell, you want to talk about the so-called hero story, because a lot of people won't know you, right? Very rarely you'll have a huge brand and somebody watched your YouTube videos for 10 years already and they know everything about you already. Most of the time, maybe they've been DMing back and forth with you a little bit. Maybe they come from ads and they've seen a video or two. They don't come quite warm to you. So you want to talk about your own story a little bit, just in 30 seconds. Like, you don't want to go too much into detail here. And what I usually do here with a hero story, I don't lie. 100% not a fan of that. But what I do is I emphasize certain parts about my hero story that fit to the prospect. So if the prospect, for example, for my hero story part, if the prospect comes from a small village and they want to become successful and kind of get out of that village, well, I'm definitely going to mention I'm from a small village as well, which is, again, it's not lying, it's the truth. It's if someone comes from a big city and has nothing to do with my upbringing, there's no parallels, and I'm not going to mention that, or I'm not going to emphasize that as much. So the important part here about the hero story, where you kind of talking about your own problem and how you fix the problem, you want that to relate to the other person. So what we used to do in my very first business, the dating and personal development coaching, we would literally just like kind of figure out what the shortcomings are of the prospect, and then if they had the same shortcomings that I used to have, we would emphasize that. So a lot of guys would say, hey, look, I was never the popular kid in school. I was always kind of like the nerd. I was, watching The Simpsons and Star Wars and stuff like that, and everybody else was kind of doing the cool things. Well, that fits perfectly to my hero story. So I would definitely mention that as well. I would say like, hey, listen, real quick before we move on, I don't know how much you know about me and like where I come from and how the hell I'm sitting here. Like, who the hell am I to sit here and teach people how to XYZ end result? You probably don't know much about me, right? Okay, no worries, just 30 seconds. I'll give you a quick rundown. So I'm actually from a small village myself, and in school I was never really the popular kid, and I didn't have a lot of experience with going on dates and stuff. So, and that really, really frustrated me. So I decided I want to move out of my little village and really make something out of myself and work on my social skills and yada, 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 yada. So you see here with the hero story, number one, I get the permission. I'm saying, hey, do you mind? Do you? How much do you know about me? Oh, you don't know much about me? Okay. Do you mind if I give you a quick 30-second summary just so you have a little bit of context? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then I talk about myself, about my hero story, and I make sure that I relate as many points as I can to the other person. Don't lie, don't make stuff up, but be selective with the things you talk about, and be selective of the things you don't want to talk about as they fit and relate or not relate to the person that you're talking to. Important about the hero story, and this is kind of like a little bit of a charisma trick that I want to share with you here, a little value nugget. A lot of times when you're talking about yourself and the successes that you've had and why you're the perfect choice for people in your niche to get help from you, it sounds very braggy and it sounds very salesy. And every time you're salesy or braggy, what happens is the person that you're talking to will increase their defenses again. And that's not good. You never want to sound like a sales guy. You never want to sound try-hard. So how the hell can you not sound try-hard when you talk about yourself and how awesome the results are that you've gotten for yourself or your clients in the past years? Well, it's the so-called slightly confused and bored tonality. So I'm going to first tell you about myself as it relates to my business right now in the salesy tonality, and then I'm going to tell it again in the slightly confused and bored tonality, and then you will tell me, I mean, you can't tell me, but you will tell me in your head which one sounds better. Okay, so option one. So, yeah, I don't know if you know much about me, but, who the hell am I to sit here and tell you about how to build a business? I mean, if you don't mind, I can give you a quick 30-second rundown. All right, perfect. So, I actually started from scratch. I was in a tiny 5,000 people cow town in Austria, and I really wanted to make money, right? Just like you. So I ventured out into the world. I built my very first online coaching business, and at first I made $5,000 to $10,000 after working for free for 12 months. It was really, really crazy. And then I said, hey, I want to become the best coach out there in the dating and personal development field. So what I did then is I crushed it. I went on 4 world tours, and I started making millions of dollars. It was an absolutely incredible journey. I broke a lot of records, and now I'm here to tell you about how you can do the same. Now, that's cool. That wasn't too bad. The points were really awesome, but it sounded very salesy, and look at me, I'm so cool, which is surprise, what everybody else is trying to do. Every single coach in your niche, every single person that has pitched to your lead before is trying to sound like that. So what I do when I brag, either about myself or later when I'm explaining the program, I sound slightly confused and bored. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying it like this. I'm not sure, John, if you actually know anything about myself. I mean, you just got here. Like, who the hell am I to sit here to tell you about how to build a business? So if you don't mind, I'll give you a quick 30-second rundown of kind of where I come from. Is that fine? All right, awesome. So I actually come from a 5,000 people cow town. It wasn't the nicest of experiences, and I always kind of wanted to make money online, so I kind of made the decision to become a dating personal development coach, and I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of stupid mistakes, and lo and behold, I started making my first 5 to 10K a month. It was super crazy, actually. Like, I had no clue what I was doing, but I guess it worked pretty well. And then I went on world tours because I really felt like I want to put myself out there. I did like 4 or 5 world tours or something like that. Crazy experiences, and then I made like 2 or 3 million or something like that in the first year, and it was pretty awesome. And now I'm here, and I'm in the slightly awesome position to be able to help guys like you kind of get the same. Whew. So you can hear the difference, how I sounded much more humble and less salesy, because I literally added a couple like kinda and like I guess, and I sounded a little bit confused. Like I didn't say I made millions. I'm so cool. You should buy from me. Yeah, I'm the best. No, I didn't sound like that. I'm like, yeah, I made like 2-3 million or something like that. It's just like, by the way, that's kind of the mind frame that I'm coming from. That's kind of the tonality that you want to have when you're bragging about yourself in the hero story. And again, also later on when you're talking about your program and why it's so awesome. So that being said, hope you learned something new so far. But we're not even near the end here. It's continuing. So what you want to do after the hero story is you want to do the so-called early price drop. I prefer doing the early price drop, meaning you drop the price in a bottom way fashion before you actually pitch. A lot of people, they just later on when they pitch, they're like, this is what you're going to get and this is the price. And for some people that comes as a shock, and then the closer, or you as the coach, you kind of have to work yourself back up and increase the vibes of the prospect again. That's why I like to do an early price drop before I even pitch anything, right after the hero story. And the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to tell you now exactly how we're saying it. So that's about me, and I'm not 100% sure, John, how much you know about my program. I mean, maybe you read it online, or maybe you've heard it from someone that's been in my program. But usually what I do is I work with my clients 3 to 6 months. Price point is around $3,500. But what I really want to know from you here at this stage is, what would you expect from a mentorship, both in terms of results as well as in terms of support that you're getting there? So you can see here what I did is I dropped the price point in a bottom way manner, and then I kind of distracted from it almost by asking a question. A lot of people do this early price drop wrong. They're like, all right, I don't know, John, how much you know about me. Maybe you've read it online, or maybe you've heard it from a client of mine, but my price point is usually 3 to 6 months for $3,500. And what I really want to know from you is, what are you expecting both in terms of results? That doesn't work, because now it's like price point. Oof. Suck on that. That doesn't work. So the early price drop should be kind of like in the middle of the sentence. So the lead, the prospect is like, oh, $3,500. all right, sounds reasonable or sounds like quite a lot, but I'm here to hear more. Oh, he's asking me a question. Okay, let me answer the question. So the price, when you bring it up later, is then not much of a shock anymore. That's what we do with the early price drop, as well as asking for the expectations. Now, when the prospect answers expectations, both in terms of results as well as terms of support, also there, write down freaking notes, because this is literally what you're going to pitch to the prospect. I mean, as much as it fits into your program. So if the prospect says, like, look, they're expecting to get XYZ end results within the 3 to 6 months, and they would prefer a very intensive one-on-one accountability structure, and you're doing one-on-one, I would definitely mention that later on in the pitch. I wouldn't just say, hey, here's the program. In fact, I would probably even write down the exact words that the prospect is telling me. They would say, like, I would love to have very intensive care and good accountability, preferably every day. So what I'm going to do is I'm later on going to say, hey, this is the price point is $3,500. For that, you're going to get intensive care and you're going to get accountability every day. Like, I would literally like echo these words back to them. So make sure that you're writing them down, and you got to pay attention there. And you can see here still, we haven't pitched anything yet, but we've gathered so much information about how we're going to structure our pitch later down the line. Right? Again, 90% of sales happens when you're asking questions. It has nothing to do with your pitching. It has nothing to do with your objection handling. Right? You can really do a lot of the sales work by sounding slightly confused and bored, having good acknowledgement, and just 1 or 2 rapport parts where you're reverting their answers back to you. When you're doing a proper discovery phase, you really find out about the heaven and the hell, and you're adjusting your hero story nicely, and you're doing an early price drop, and you really find out what their expectations are. Whew. Max, are we going to get to pitch now? When's the pitch? Can I pitch now? No. You can't pitch yet, because what we're doing now is, this is so key. We'll go full circle in a minute, I promise you. Now you got to talk about the steps that your prospect has to take. You figured out about the problem, you figured out about their heaven, you figured out about their hell, you figured out where they want to get away from, what they want to get towards to, and so on and so forth. You know everything about them. And now what you got to do is you actually got to consult them in the next steps that they need to do. This is where a lot of people just start pitching their program. Like, all right, this is the program will help you. But that sucks, because number one, it's super obvious. Here's the problems, and the solution is my program. Now go buy. And number two, it doesn't become tangible to the other person in regards to what they need to do. So I'm going to tell you how I first discovered this steps thing. I'm going to give you a quick example of how I got closed on one of the greatest mentors that I've worked with for a very, very long time. It was 2 German brothers. Shout out to them. And the way they closed me was the following. So I had been at the top of my game with my very first business, the dating advice and personal development advice business. And I was only selling info products online with like a video sales letter. It was like $500 to $900 that I sold for just a video course. And then they were trying to sell me on their mentorship, where they would teach me how to charge high ticket prices for a high ticket online mentoring program. And what they did was really, really awesome. Like, I was in a call with them, and the guy would, do the discovery phase and all that, a little bit hero story, and then he would tell me exactly how I would create a high-ticket mentoring program and how I would sell that for high-ticket. He would literally tell me the 3, 4, 5 macro steps that I needed to implement. So as he was telling me the steps, I would write down like notes like crazy. I had a whole A4 page, a whole Google Doc page with notes on exactly what I need to do. He's like, this is step 1. First, you got to, create the offer. It's going to be at this price point. You got to be careful with this. Then step 2, we're going to, promote the offer. And step 3, you're going to hire a sales guy. They're going to close for you. Step 4, and so on and so forth. So I got this whole notes thingy here. And I was literally like, this is great. Like, now I know what to do. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then he said, listen, you can either do this alone or you do it with us. Price point's $5,000 or whatever it was, or it was euros. And then I'm like, oh, they want me to pay. And I'll never forget that. It was on Zoom. So on one half of my screen, I had the closer, right, the sales guy, just like smiling at me after he just pitched. And on the other half of the screen, I had my notes. And I'm like looking at him, and he's like smiling. Then I look at my notes, and I'm like, I gotta do all these things. And I look back at him, and I was smiling. I'm like, I need to do all these things myself, or I just pay him $5,000 and they do it with me. I'm like, all right, I'm in. Let's do it. And boom, I got closed. And then out of that partnership, we made like, I don't know, $5 million a year or something like that. I can't remember. You see that tonality again? Confused. I probably know pretty exactly what I made, but I don't want to brag. You get the thing. Anyways. So what you want to do here with the steps is you want to give them rough step guidelines on what they need to do. So, and these steps need to be adjusted. This is so key. You've done all the discovery phase for a reason, right? Don't pitch them the vanilla steps, right? If you talk to someone that is working in a 9-to-5 job, sedentary lifestyle, and they don't want to go to the gym, but they have an hour a day to do exercises, and they want to still eat pizza, but they still want to lose weight, now I would adjust these steps of like, step 1, we need to get you on a pizza diet, okay? I call this the pizza diet, which means you got to eat pizza every Saturday, but during the week, you're going to eat other things. And don't worry, you're not going to have to go to the gym. That is step 2. Step 2 is the anti-gym routine, where you said you have an hour a day, and what we're going to do there is we're going to do specific body weight exercises, which you can do in 30-minute breaks in between your sedentary lifestyle job and 30 minutes at home, and so on and so forth. So you can see here, I'm adjusting the steps to the prospect. Couple words about the steps. Let's go deeper into those. Number 1, they should sound simple and sexy. All right? I don't want you to misunderstand it from that example that I gave earlier where I said, like, I had a whole page of notes. That's just me. That's how my personality works. But the steps need to be simple, understandable, and they should sound relatively sexy. So instead of saying, well, number 1, your diet, we got to fix the diet, and then number 2, we're going to fix the exercise. No, I came up with cool, fancy freaking names. Like, we're going to put you on a pizza diet, right? Because you like pizza. Okay, we're going to put you on the I hate gyms exercise routine because you say you don't want to go to the gym. Now, this is kind of obvious, but I hope you get the gist. If you can give each step a cool name, absolutely do it, because that sounds much cooler, and it sounds like there's much more to the step than there might be. So I really, really like this of like, oh, the pizza diet sounds cool, and it's something, it gives them something to write down. Even if you don't close that person, they will maybe still have the sheet of paper or the notepad where it says step 1, pizza diet. And maybe later when they go to sleep, before the follow-up call tomorrow, they will read and they're like, pizza diet, I kind of like that. Yeah, fair, maybe I should buy it tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So give them cool, fancy names if you can. And again, make the steps sound sexy and freaking interesting. Also there, in a discovery phase earlier, if they say they've tried whatever dieting before, then I wouldn't call step 2 dieting. You know, because they've tried that before. So you really want to be mindful with these steps in regards to what the lead has said before, what they're trying to get away from, what they're getting towards, right? Even if they say things like, look, I want to have enough time for my children, I would say then, hey, and step 4, we're going to come up with a time plan to ensure that you can actually give the time to your children that they deserve, right? So steps is kind of the pre-pitch. The better these steps, the more the client has already been sold on that before they even know what exactly is in the program. And this is very, 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 very key. You do not pitch the program. You pitch the steps. That is very, very key. So, assuming you've laid out 3 to 5 steps, I wouldn't do more than 3 to 5. If you say like, well, but it would take them 10, well, then summarize some of these so it's only coming out to 3 to 5 steps, right, in total. You don't want to make it sound too hard, but you also don't want to make them sound too easy. If you make them sound too hard, they're like, I can't do it, I don't think I can do this, blah, blah, blah. If you make the steps sound too easy, they will say, I don't know what to do now, thank you, I will execute this first myself. So you want to kind of find a balance between these steps are relatively simple, and I get it. I understand logically that I need to do them. I just don't quite know how exactly that would look like. That is kind of the mind frame that you want to get your prospect into. I wish I could tell you how exactly that works, but you know, there's a lot of nuance to it. Depends on you, depends on the prospect, depends on your niche, depends on your offer. But again, if you can get them into a frame where they say, this sounds interesting, this sounds good, I could definitely see myself doing that, but I don't quite know how. That's the golden medium that you want to be in. So assuming you've just done this, you now want to get into the pitch. And again, you want to pitch the steps here, not the program. A lot of people now, they're just going through like, yeah, and here's the program. And in the program, you're going to get this, and you're going to get WhatsApp support, and you're going to get 2 live calls per week, yada, yada, yada. This is the price. But the problem here is when we talk about the program and not the steps, you're completely unlinking their problem from the things that they need to do. It's just like, here's the problem, here's where you want to get, here's the steps you want to get to, and by the way, there's this random program out there. You want to link the steps with the price. So the way a pitch should usually look like is, what I do first is I do pre-qualification questions, like pre-pitch questions, basically. So I usually say, okay, so these are the steps. This is what you need to do, John. That being said, what do you think about these steps? So I call this like a little bit of a ping, like a pre-pitch, pre-frame kind of thingy. You can call it ping in your notes if you want to. You want to ping, what do you think about these steps, John? And then usually they say something like, they're pretty good, I guess. Now you got to be on that. Don't move on. You now want to find out why he only says, I guess, right? The way you do that is you just say, I guess, you guess. And now they say, well, step 3 sounds pretty interesting, but I don't know if I could do this with my time. And now you have already the first objection that you can handle, right? In this case, I would say something like, okay, so you said you couldn't do that step in that time. Well, let me ask you this. How long do you think that step's going to take you on a daily basis? I don't know, maybe 3 hours? Oh, no, it doesn't take more than 30 minutes a day, actually. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, okay, that makes sense. And now you just circle back to, all right, so that being said, now that I've clarified that, what do you think about the rest of the steps? Well, I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good, right? When that ping comes back to you, and they don't give you a super clear answer in regards to like, I love these steps, this is exactly what I want, you can ping again by saying, okay, well, let me put it that way, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I want to get out of here, these steps suck, and 10 being, this is exactly what I want, what would you give it? And then, they say 7 out of 10, or they say 10 out of 10. If they say 10 out of 10, you're good. If they say 7 out of 10, you just ask, well, 7 out of 10 is pretty good. That means you give yourself a 70% chance of succeeding. What would be missing? What would you need in order to get it to 10 out of 10? And then again, they will probably tell you certain objection. Well, it would be 10 out of 10 if I could do XYZ. Right? And then you can handle that pre-objection. At this point, you haven't even pitched anything yet. You just want to handle the objections in regards to the steps alone. Now, sometimes the prospect is going to say something like, well, steps are 7 out of 10. What would miss to 10 out of 10? It depends on the price. It depends on how much that costs me. Do not fall into this frame. Because, again, you still want to know if the objection or the potential objection has anything to do with the steps. So in this case, I would always move it away from the price and say, apart from the price now, John, and we'll get to this in a second, what do you think about the steps specifically? Just completely disregard the price. Or another way of framing that would be, forget about the price. If I would give you these steps for free, if you wouldn't have to pay anything, what would you think about these steps specifically, right? And then again, they'll tell you they're great, or I guess, or maybe, I'm not sure, or they're perfect. Depending on that, dig deeper, find out if it's 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10, or whatever, and then handle the objection before you even get to anything. Once you've done this ping, once you have the pre-framing out of the way, now you're pitching. So now we get to, how long have I talked so far? It's pretty like 52 minutes? Holy shit. I thought it was like 20 minutes in or something. Well, there you go. That's a masterclass for you all. I hope you like. Hey, if you're still listening, give a thumbs up, give a 5-star rating to this episode, whether you listen to this on Spotify or iTunes. If you're watching this on YouTube, give a thumbs up and leave a comment. Just be like, Max, you suck, or Max, you're great. Give me some feedback. I would love that. It would really help me out because we'd reach more people. I get more. What? Who's the sponsor? Yeah, you're the sponsor right now. You're listening to this. The sponsoring is the 5-star rating. Hey, you can also give me a 1-star rating if you don't like it. That's fine too. I can handle it. Anyways. So now it gets to the pitch. And again, as I said earlier, you want to pitch the steps, not the program. So the pitch would then usually look something like this. So, you ping the steps. They say the steps look great. You even want to ask, that's another ping, sorry, before we get to the pitch, another ping that I usually say is like, do you want to execute these steps? So after they said they like the steps, they're great, the 10 out of 10, I'm like, do you want to execute these steps? Or are you ready to execute the steps? Are you ready to implement these steps? Get that yes. If they say no, circle back. Why not? What's the issue, right? We'll talk more about handling objections in a second because it's the exact same objection scheme over and over again, even if it comes before the pitch. Okay, so assuming they said they like the steps, assuming they said they want to implement the steps, now you basically say, all right, sounds good. So, yeah, we're going to work together over the next insert time frame, 3 to 6 months. What you're going to do here is you're going to work with me in blah, blah, blah format. Ideally, it's one-on-one. I recommend everybody to do one-on-one in the beginning. So we're going to work together over the next 3 to 6 months. We're going to work one-on-one. You'll be in intensive care with me, right? If that's the word that they used earlier. And we're going to get you to results XYZ. We're going to implement these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however many there are, so you can finally end result, end result, end result, throwing the words back that they said in the heaven and in their goals and so on and so forth. Total price point for that is $3,500. Pause. Zip your mouth shut. It's that famous Wolf of Wall Street quote, like, whoever talks first loses. Or what is it? Something like that, yeah. So you don't want to say anything at this point, all right? Whew. Here's the thing. Because you dropped the price point earlier, it will come less as a shock. Because you've done the steps properly, and you've pinged if they like the steps, and you've handled any pre-objections before, and you've done great rapport and great tonality, and you talked about your story, and you sounded slightly confused and bored, you have a great, great chance that they now already say yes. They're like, all right, yeah, sounds good, let's do it. Or, so that's the best case scenario, or middle case scenario, they have a couple more clarifying questions, in which case answer them. Or, worst case scenario, they say no, and there's an objection, which isn't too bad either in regards to that, right? 1 second, I just had an idea. I don't want to forget that. All right, there we go. So now whatever comes now, it's important that you don't speak after the price drop. That's always very, very key. And it will feel very, very weird at first. You're just going to stare into the camera, and it will be like 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. It will feel very, very awkward, but I really want you to force yourself not to say anything because you want to create that vacuum now, right? What I used to do is I would literally just like smile at the camera and just count to 10 very slowly in my own head. 1, 2, 3, 4. While I'm just observing my own breathing, you'll be surprised. Most of the time, after like 4 or 5 seconds, the prospect then starts talking. And again, either they say yes, or they have more questions, or they say no. Either way, nothing's lost. And here comes a little bit of a mindset when it comes to the pitch. I wholeheartedly, 100% expect a no from every single person I talk to. You'll be surprised. So I don't come in with this bullshit of oh, you manifested by picturing how the money's going to come into your bank account. This is bullshit, okay? This new era crap doesn't work. I wholeheartedly expect every single prospect to say no. I just expect that because when it does come, I'm like, well, here it is what I expected, and I'm just going to handle it, no problem. And if it doesn't come and they're ready, I'm like, oh, what a pleasant surprise. And funny enough, that expectation of them saying no goes all the way until they're literally onboarded in my program. You'll be so surprised how many people say yes, and then when it comes to the payment, they're like freaking out, or they have an issue, or they have some sort of excuse that you then have to completely backpedal and handle. So expect things to be difficult because that way you don't get caught off guard, right? So you've pitched it, and then now you're basically going through the objections. Now you noticed maybe that I haven't pitched the program per se quite a lot. I kind of had the focus on the steps. As I said, I mentioned a little bit, hey, it's going to be one-on-one, but I'm not explaining like, here's the video course and there's 500 videos in there, and here's the group calls, and they're going to take place at 5 p.m. every day, Central European time, and all that jazz. I don't do any of that because I want to keep that for the prospect who has more questions. Because it utterly doesn't matter how they're going to get the result, believe it or not. They just want to know if they can get it, and it's really just a focus on the steps themselves, all right? A great example of that is I used to go to get my teeth cleaned. That sounded very wrong. I still get my teeth cleaned, all right? And I used to go to my dentist in my little hometown, and in the beginning, he would always do the teeth cleaning himself, and then at some point, he would just have his assistant do it. So at first, I was like, I kind of want the doctor to do my teeth, right? He's the doctor, not this random assistant. But then the assistant cleaned it perfectly, and I'm like, oh, got the job done. So ultimately, I stopped caring whether the doctor does it or the assistant or a freaking lizard with the same qualification. I don't care. So that's kind of like the same with the prospect. They don't really care how many group live calls or how many videos are in your program or how many PDF sheets you're going to share with them. They just care about getting the end result, right? That's why I don't pitch on the program. I pitch on the steps. Winky smiley. Okay, very, very key. Usually now, when they have more questions, they're going to be around the program, which is fine. And in this case, answer them. They're like, okay, well, you mentioned it's one-on-one. How exactly does it work? Is it over email or WhatsApp? And I just answer. It will be over WhatsApp. Okay, are there going to be any group live calls? Yep, we have group live calls every Monday and Tuesday. One is about mindset, the other one is about strategy. All right, cool. Are there other people in the program? Yep, there's other people in the program, but not in the one-on-one group. That's only you and me and my other coaches, and the other people are in a big group where kind of like socializing is happening and you can network. And you can see here, this is a concept that I call simple question, simple answer. When the prospect asks you questions, 99% of coaches trying to sell their program, what they're going to do is they're going to really explain and really answer with as much detail as possible, trying to squeeze in as many things to tell them that the program is really awesome, and that just doesn't work. I'm going to give you an example how that works, how that looks like. So, how many group calls are there in your program? Glad you asked, John. So we have 7 group live calls per week. Every single day we have one. The first one is about mindset. The second one is about da-da-da. The third one is about this. The fourth one is about this. And they're so great because you're going to have, there's always going to be so and so many people in the call. You can ask your questions in there. And the way it works is you're going to post your question in the chat and then you have one-on-one time with the coach. And by the way, you don't need to worry because these live calls are all being recorded. So if you can't make one of these live calls, you can watch the recording in our members area, yada, 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 yada. Now, the reason why this doesn't work is because you come across as salesy. The more you talk, the more you're going to come across as this person is trying to cover something up. This person isn't really confident about the offer, right? Does that make sense? I think there's a saying like the more elaborate an excuse is, the more likely it is a lie or something like that. And that's exactly the same. So if you were 100% confident that what you're offering is the best thing in the world, better than sliced bread, better than Dune 2, better than whatever there is. If you were so confident about that, you wouldn't elaborate, right? You would just be like, oh yeah, there's 7 live calls a week. They're recorded so you can always watch the replay in case you can't make it. Done. Right? And also their tonality is like, oh yeah, da-da-da-da-da. Not like, da-da-da-da-da-da, it's so cool, it's so awesome. It's like, yeah, there's 7 live calls. Yeah, they're recorded. Oh, there's about 50 people on there. It's pretty good networking, I guess. And also there, you see, when I am bragging, I'm bragging in a slightly confused and bored tonality. Like, yeah, I guess the reason why we have so many live calls is because, we always just kind of like over-deliver, Like I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like for me, it was always kind of important that our clients have at least 1 live call per day, just in case they need support, I guess, So now the person is like, damn, 7 live calls a day. That sounds pretty awesome. He's right? Like that. The whole idea about sales is that you don't put your idea into the prospect's mind, but you have them get the idea that you want them to have. Does that make sense? That's another golden value nugget that I usually teach my clients and also the reps of my clients. If you remember Inception, great movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, they have exactly the same idea. There's a scene where they're like, okay, we have to put the idea into the brain of the guy so they think it's their idea. Because the moment they realize that this is someone else's idea, they will have what? Defense mechanisms up. This is a sales guy. He just wants to make the close here. Not going to work. But by you being humble and slightly confused and bored, yeah, I guess we got voted number 1 in the fitness niche last year or something like that. Now you're not like, we're the best, you should buy from us. You're just like, well, I guess here's the info. And then the client finishes the thought and is like, yeah, that's why I should buy from them. So again, like you try to get the idea, you try to have them have the idea, not put your idea into them. And the way you do that is by being humble and by having that slightly confused and bored tonality. This is some quite advanced stuff. If you cannot resonate with this yet, do not worry. Come back to this after 2 months, after you've done a bunch of sales calls, trying to sell your coaching, consulting, service providing offer. It will click. I promise you. Anywho, what did I say? So they're going to ask more questions about the program. Simple questions, simple answer, right? Don't elaborate too much. And when you do elaborate and when you do brag, do it in a slightly confused and bored manner. Whatever their question is, answer them truthfully. Don't lie. I always like to undersell and overdeliver, aka I still sell hard because underselling actually works better. And at the same time, people then are like, oh my God, this is actually exactly what he told me and he didn't oversell me on that. Because again, like a guy that has a bucket of water for the burning person, they don't need to sell the water. It's like pretty clear that this is really freaking awesome, right? They would be like, I'm burning. Is this water in your bucket? You're like, yeah, it's water. You wouldn't say, yeah, this is water. It will alleviate your pain, and it will do this, and it's so awesome. It's the best water. Like Donald Trump, it's the best water in the world. People love the water. Everybody told me I got the best water out of everyone. Like, you wouldn't do that, right? I hope you wouldn't do that. So yeah, now you're answering the questions. Now let's get to the objection handling per se. How do you objection handle? It's always the same scheme. What I see a lot of people do, I'll tell you first what is wrong. They get the objection and they jump on that objection like a snake trying to hunt its prey. Just like the person says, I don't know, the price seems quite steep. All right, well, Elon Musk? Elon Musk would invest into that. Have you ever heard that, whatever you want to get out of life, you have to invest first? Have you ever heard that? And just jumping on the objection, head through the wall, like in that Jack Nicholson movie where he put his head through the wall. But you get what I'm saying. Don't handle anything until you have full clarity over what exactly the objection is. All right? I'm going to give you an example, and then we'll break down the scheme, how exactly it works. Number one, the person says, sounds good, I got to think about it. You now just say, cool, what is it that you need to think about? And now they say something like, well, the price is quite steep. Now you can ask, got it, price is quite steep. What exactly do you mean by that? Now they say, well, $3,500 all together, all up front, is quite steep for me. So now you got a pretty good clear that all together, all up front, 3.5K is quite steep for them. What I would do now is I would first revert it back to the steps just to make sure that there's no hidden objection in the price. Hidden objection before we get to the price. And the reason why I give you this example is because this is one of the most common objections that you're going to get. Oh, the price is quite high. All right. So now I say, okay, apart from the price, John or Mary or whatever, just completely let's put the price to the side right now. What do you think about the steps that we've discussed? I know I asked you earlier. These are all good still? Okay, no questions? Got it. What do you think about the program structure that I've answered earlier? Okay, so that's also 100% good. So you trust that this program can get you to the results? Yes? Good. If they say no, what do you mean by that? What's the issue? Just go back, all the way back, and really try to figure it out. If they say, yes, that's all good, it really is just the price. Now you have successfully isolated an objection. What you got to do now after isolating the question is you want to double check and confirm. You can even do this 1 or 2 or 3 times. The way this looks like in this specific example would be something like, all right, Mary, so what I'm hearing here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you love the program, love the steps, it's just a price. So my question is, if we could figure out a solution in regards to the price, would you then start right now? That is a checking, a confirmation, number 1. And then they said yes. And if you're not 100% sure, if they're saying it truthfully, you can still confirm again. You can say, so it's really just about the price. Yes? Got it. And now you handle the objection. Right? So the way you handle an objection is always the same structure. It's always finding out what exactly they mean, asking until you know exactly what the problem is. Right? Then confirming. So you've isolated it. It's like, okay, so what I'm hearing is this is the problem. You confirm it. You can double check it if you want. You can triple check it if you want. Once you've done that, then you handle the objection. I'll give you another example now. So, Mary, let's get started. This is the price, $3,500. Let's do this. And then she says something like, I got to sleep over it. All right, Mary. What is it that you need to sleep over? Well, Max, I just don't think I'm ready for this. All right, Mary. Appreciate the honesty here, by the way. So when you say you're not sure if you're ready for this, what exactly do you mean by that? Well, Max, I think, right now it's just such a difficult time. It's September now, and at work, September we have this like coupon thingy where I get a lot of clients at my work, and I'm just not sure if I have the head for that, right? Got it, Mary, got it. So, okay, September's pretty tough for you at work. Geez, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. September can be quite tough sometimes. When you say you don't have the head for that, what exactly is it that you think is holding you back? Well, Max, I'll be working extra times, extra shifts here. I just don't think I have enough time to execute all the steps in the program. Got it, Mary. When you say you don't have enough time, let me ask you this. If we could figure out the time issue here, is that the only thing? Or is there something else that's holding you back? I'm happy to answer any questions here. Yeah, Max, I think it's only the time. All right, it's only the time. Are you sure? Yeah, Max. Yeah, I think it's only the time. All right, got it. So let me ask you this. If we could figure out a way to fix the time issue, right? If we could find a solution there, would you then get started with us? Yeah, Max. Yeah. I would say I would get started with you. All right, perfect. So let me ask you this. How much time do you have on average per day now in September? I don't know. Maybe a couple hours? Couple hours, Mary. Got it. Well, let me put it this way. So when are you getting up for work? I'm getting up at 6, and then I'm at work at 7. Got it. And when are you coming back? I'm coming back at like 5 p.m. All right, cool. And then what are you doing after 5 p.m.? Just not much, cooking, being on the phone a little bit with my best friend, watching some Netflix, and then I go to bed at 10. All right, guys. So you're coming back at 6. You're on the phone. You're cooking dinner. So let's say maybe you have an hour a day before you go to bed. Do I get that right? Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, let me ask you this. How much time do you think it's going to take you per day to execute that? Well, Max, I'm pretty sure it's going to take me like 3 hours to execute that, right? No, not at all, Mary. No, actually, I mean, most clients that I've worked with, they've done this in 30 to 60 minutes a day. Oh, I didn't know. I thought it would be 3 to 4 hours. No, I mean, 30 to 60 minutes, I can absolutely do, Max. Well, perfect, Mary. Well, let's get started then. And I went back to the pitch. So you can see, again, objection handling is never handling the objection first. It's always asking more questions until you can literally summarize in one sentence what the objection is. We usually do this with our clients as well. We say, hey, unless you can tell me in exactly one sentence what the objection is, you haven't asked enough questions, right? Why is that person not willing to buy right now? Because they have uncertainty about time, because they cannot afford it, because they want to start at a later point, because right now they have to work a lot because it's summer, right? Unless you can summarize it in one sentence, you haven't asked enough questions yet. So ask questions first the moment an objection comes up. Number 2, isolate the objection by basically pinpointing it down until you really know this is one sentence, the one thing that's holding them back, and then double and triple confirming that this is the one thing, and if that one thing is fixed, they will start with you, and then you handle the objection. That is very, 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 very key. Now, what I usually do when I'm asking these questions, and this is very, very key when it comes to how to be persistent without being pushy, so pay attention now, how to be persistent without being pushy, is I always ask these questions with a curiosity tonality. A lot of coaches, consultant service providers that want to sell their service or product or whatever, they're going to sound slightly pushy, and it's super hard to detect for you, but I promise you the prospect will hear it. They will say things like, okay, so when you say you don't have time, what do you mean by that? So if we would fix the time problem, you would get started with us right now, right? You can hear this is this slightly tonality, this slightly aggressive tonality, and the moment they hear that aggressive tonality is the moment you get categorized as too salesy, is the moment you lose the sale because they put their defenses up. So when I ask these questions, I'm always like the curiosity guy. I'm always like, all right, Mary, so when you say you're not sure about the time, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, I almost sound a little stupid. I'm like, I fell for a horse and I have a hard time focusing, kind of stupid. Like, all right, so you said you want to do this in September. So what's different in September than right now, if you don't mind me asking? You'll have more time. Okay, cool. I mean, how much time do you think it's gonna take you? You can even see here, like, I sound weird. I sound slightly insecure. I don't want to sound pushy here at all cost. I want to sound innocent and curious about their situation. That is how you can be very persistent. You can go really deep down the rabbit hole and really figure out all the questions. And so would you get started with us now if we could find a solution there? You could do all these things almost infinitely without sounding too pushy. And the funny thing is, when it comes to these objection handlings, you're probably going to have to wash, rinse, repeat this with multiple objections. So the first objection is, I don't know if I have enough time. You isolate it, you confirm it, you handle the objection, then you go for a pitch again. Then they say, oh, but I have objection number 2. I don't know about the price. You isolate it, you double confirm it, you handle it, you go back to the pitch. Oh, but what about this? I'm not sure if I can do it. I'm not sure if I'm good enough. You isolate it, you confirm it, you double check it, and then you go back to the pitch. So you will literally have to wash, rinse, repeat that a couple times, and that's totally fine as long as your tonality is kind of like curious and innocent, and as long as you acknowledge what they say and you throw in rapport after that. 99% of cases are going to be cracked like this. This is very, very key. Even if you're saying, hey, listen, Max, I'm not a fan of that. I'm totally fine with having a second follow-up call with them. That is totally fine. But even there, you're not allowed to let your prospect go until you can summarize in a simple single sentence what their single objection was. If you can't do that, they're probably not going to show up to the next call either, right? So it's very, very key for you to get that clarity. And that is how you can be persistent in your objection handling without being pushy. Now, one last thing to revert back to the price point. A lot of times it's going to be about price point, depending on your niche. But even if you're in a B2B and you have large companies, they're probably all still going to bitch about the price. That's totally fine. So here's how to fix the price objection. So I'm assuming at this point you've isolated it, you've double confirmed that it really is only about the price. What I would do now is the so-called financial advisor frame. The financial advisor frame is basically you're putting on the shoes of a financial advisor where you're going through their numbers, you're going through their income, their savings, and so on and so forth to really figure out, can they afford the program? And if they can't afford it, can they only afford it in a payment plan, or can they afford it in full? And what is the best financial decision for you to make here to make this happen? So at this point, again, I'm assuming you've completely isolated this and they said, hey, I really want to start this program. This is not about a matter of, do I want to start this program? This is more a matter of, can I afford this program? And I want to have a financial solution there, right? The first thing you want to do here is, after you've isolated and all that, you want to basically say, listen, is it okay then? So you just confirmed to me that it's a matter of price. It's not a matter of whether you want to start this program. You really want to start. It's just about the price. Is it okay if we take a quick 2 minutes to talk a little bit about your financial situation to see if and how exactly I can get you in a program with maybe potentially a payment plan or anything like that? Is that okay? Perfect. So step 1 of the financial advisor is you ask for permission. Once you got the permission, 99% of the time you will get the permission. If they say no, then it's just some other objection that they don't trust you. You wash, rinse, repeat it with the same objection handling structure that I've just explained. But most people will say yes at this point. And now what you want to do is you want to imagine yourself sitting next to each other at a desk or on a table. You don't want to have this typical, like, I want to sell and they should buy, kind of like sitting across from each other frame. It's literally like you and them, you're sitting next to each other in front of a math problem. You got a math problem that you both try to figure out. There's like a lot of numbers and you're working together. Like you got your hand around their shoulder, right? And you're like, all right, let's figure this thing out here, right? That's kind of like the financial advisor mindset that you want to put yourself into here. And also there, you want to sound still curious, right? And you want to keep emphasizing that you're here to figure out a financial plan that can help them get started with the program. Because they already mentioned they want to get started. It's just about the finances, right? So you get the permission, step 1. Step 2, have the mindset of sitting in front of the math problem together side by side. And then step 3 is you simply start asking about their finances. Usually you want to start with how much you got saved up right now. All right, got it. So you got whatever, $3,000 saved up right now. How much of that can you theoretically put into this? Because sometimes they got $3,000 saved, but then they got a tax payment or they got to fix their car. And they say, whatever, $1,000 I can invest, the other I still need for emergencies. Okay, so you can literally write down in your notes, because it's going to be a bunch of numbers. You don't want to lose the overview. You write down, okay, they got $1,000. All right, what are you making each and every month from your job? You mentioned earlier you're working as a blah blah blah. All right, so this is how much you're making. Got it. How much of that is left over after taxes? Paying your bills, groceries, rent. Okay, got it. So you got $500 left at the end of the day. Okay, cool. Do you have any sort of other investments that you could potentially liquefy, like in crypto or stocks or anything like that? Okay, you got nothing there. Do you have access to credit, by the way? Just not saying we got to use it. Just curious if you do have access to credit. I usually add this because some people, they kind of close off when they're like, access to credit. I don't want to use my credit card. Just like not saying that you need to use it. Just wondering that you have access to credit. Okay, got it. So you got this, this, and this. And then you literally have the numbers in front of you and in front of them, and you could say, okay, so what I could see here, you can afford 1,000 right now, and then you can afford whatever, 800 a month. So what I suggest here from my side, I don't want to get you into financial trouble whatsoever. So I would say out of these 1,000 that you have available, we'll take 800 just so you have 200 of a cushion, and then the 800, and then whatever 600 of what you are able to put aside every month, we put that in the program, and that's in the payment plan for the next 6 months. If I do this for you, are you then willing to get started? That's one way of asking. Or like, okay, so is that looks to me like it's the solution to your problem, right? Yes, great. So you're ready to get started? If we do it like that, perfect. Let's go. And that's basically it. So this is how you handle it. Now, of course, it depends on your price point, right? And also it depends on your payment plans. We usually want to have not too long of a payment plan. So if my client sells a 3-month program, we want to have the payment plan for maximum 6 months, right? If you sell a 6-month program, you want to have a payment plan maximum 12 months. I would not do anything lower than that. Usually people, they then quit, or they become a pain, or they cannot pay for it the whole time. So maximum double the months that the length of your program is should be a payment plan. If they can't afford beyond that, that's totally fine. I would hype them up in this case, and I would come up with a date and time in the future where they have at least enough money to pay them with a payment plan. I would hype them up. I would put them on my follow-up list. And maybe I'll make a separate podcast episode about value-driven follow-up, which is what we're doing, instead of just like, how are you doing? Are you ready to buy? Right? That makes no sense, but that's why I would do it. So follow-up is a whole other spiel. It's probably another 90-minute episode here. But this is how you handle the financial objection part. And then again, you'll be surprised how much they can actually afford. I see so many reps and so many coaches, consultants, service providers then coming back and saying like, oh, the person couldn't afford it. And then I'm like, okay, well, how much did they have saved up? Oh, you didn't ask? Okay, well, how much are they making per month, and how much of that can they put aside each month? Oh, you didn't ask. So how the hell do you know that they can't afford it? Well, because they said it, right? So if you really want to get off a call and say, hey, they couldn't afford it, you really need to isolate the objection first, make 100% sure that it's not about the steps, it's not about the program per se, and this whole money thing is not just a smokescreen, and then it is a money problem, and then you want to have done the financial advisor, and then you want to know exactly, hey, they could not afford the lowest payment plan for sure, because I got the numbers right here and we discussed them together. But again, in most cases, especially if you have some sort of pre-screening beforehand, maybe in the beginning of the call, or maybe you even have a setter call before that, or you're screening in the DMs, in most cases, now you handle it. And now you closed. That's simple. How long have you been talking so far? Holy smokes. Almost done here, folks. By the way, if you're listening, I appreciate the hell out of you. Really, thank you, thank you, thank you. This was not as flashy of another podcast episode that we do with the guests. It's quite intense with the in terms of content, so I appreciate you still listening. Last but not least, when they buy, congratulate them. This is a great frame I got from Apple. Whenever you go to an Apple store, you buy like a $6,000 completely overpriced MacBook. You think they will say thank you? You think these schmucks at Apple are going to say thank you? No. They're going to say congratulations for buying a completely overpriced MacBook that has the best graphics card so you can frickin' play Minecraft on there. So yes, that's the frame. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. What I'm saying is I congratulate them on the choice instead of saying thank you. They just did an awesome choice, right? You just got some money. Cool. But what's really mattering is that they got the thing, the help, the program, the course that they really need. So congratulate them. And then in an ideal scenario, you onboard them right away. A quick sidetrack here. You want to get the payment in the call right away. 99% of the time when they say, yeah, send me the link or send me a PDF or something, you'll never hear them again. I don't care how much great rapport you've had with them. Them saying they don't want to pay right there on the call is just another word for like, hey, there's another objection that you couldn't find. So handle that on the call. Take the payment on the call, which kind of reverts back to the preparation. Like make sure that you got your bank details ready, you got your Stripe account or Cope card or whatever that you have that you're using, that is ready and that is set up, or PayPal at the very least. Like you want to get the payment in there right away. And then you want to usually onboard them right away, or at least schedule an onboarding call. We do our onboarding calls one-on-one, so the moment someone buys from us, they get a personalized welcome, they get a congratulations, and they instantly get scheduled a one-on-one kickoff call with one of our one-on-one coaches that will be given to them. Sometimes people have preferences. They're like, oh, I want to, I'm a girl, so I want to have a girl as a one-on-one coach. Or, hey, I'm a dude in my 40s. I want to have a guy in my 40s, one of your coaches that is roughly the same age. So we give them a coach that fits best to them, and then the coach has a one-on-one call with them and just onboards them, or I do the onboarding call personally. That gives people this really cool, like, hey, you've just done the hard part. You invested in us. Welcome. Now you're taken care of. You just been wandering through the desert of Arrakis. You're tired. You're sunburned. You're thirsty. You're here. We're going to feed you. We're going to give you drinks. And you're here in the cool and you're being taken care of. You're fine, right? Your crazy journey is over. You're good now. Now we're going to help you. So that's kind of like the feeling that you want to give him. And yeah, that is basically it. Now I could talk much more about, how you can deliver to your clients properly, how to make sure they're happy, accountability structures and all that jazz. But that is content for another episode. So that being said, if this sounds interesting to you and you're like, wow, Max, I learned something new, please comment down below. If this is on YouTube, please give us a 5-star rating if you haven't done so yet. And if you want to work with us together, you want to learn a little bit more, but like, hey, Max, how do you make your clients your money? How does it work? I have a business idea to build a coaching, consulting, service providing business. How can I make this work? Or I'm already making money. How can I make more? Go ahead, book a free call with us at maxtornow.com/call. That's where you're going to be talking to me or an expert from my team. We can help you out with that. And if you have more sales questions, go ask us there. We're happy to help. That being said, thank you so much for listening and watching. Much appreciated. Much love. May the force be with you, and GG.